I lean toward a strongly disagree there, but I'm going to put a disagree. I think people are way too disconnected from art and creativity and museums and the like.
Also, necessity is the mother of invention. And I mean, you wouldn't have hip hop. I mean, I don't think it was funded by taxpayer money. I think it came from working with what you have. Like, oh, we don't have instruments, but we have these records that we can sample stuff.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mind Under Matter podcast. I'm Shane Mauss, and this is my very good friend, Ramin Nazer. We were just having a wonderful discussion before this. So this is a week apart in your guys' experience of this podcast. In ours, it's 1 day apart, and we were just hashing out what we want the artwork to be in terms of political things and how to capture some of what we were talking about in last episodes with things being on a spectrum and the mistaken idea of forming these rigid categories of black, white, red, blue, and talking about needing more shades and stuff. And I was about to tell Ramin, so I just thought, let's hit record and capture this. There's cool studies about the way in which our eyes categorize color on the spectrum. So there's actually a bunch of interesting things. One, we kind of the colors that we experience are influenced by, again, it's like genes and environment interacting together in this super interesting way. So there's only so much of a spectrum that we can perceive, but within that, the way in which we separate the categories of color is influenced by your upbringing and culture and what you're taught. So different cultures experience the rainbow differently. So if you give them a box of unmarked crayons of like 300 crayons and have them draw the rainbow, different cultures draw it slightly differently. They'll pick consistently pick slightly different colors within the color spectrum.
Like the order? Or you mean they'll pick different different actors?
Yeah, it'll be like a different kind of purple or different actors. I think I should look into it a little bit more, but this next thing will capture what I'm saying really well. So within that, there's what's the color spectrum? Red.
Roy G. Biv. Red,
blue.
Orange, yellow, green, indigo. No, sorry, blue, indigo, violet, pink, and then you're right back at red again.
Yeah.
Or I mean, you're at ultraviolet then, but if you're looking at it like a wheel, it goes back to red.
So yellow and orange are next to each other as an example. Okay. So imagine a long strip of yellow that bleeds into a long strip of orange. If you show people the two spots on that yellow spectrum that our eyes consider yellow, if you show people two spots that are the furthest apart on that yellow spectrum and also a spot that is right next to, so one is right next to the orange cutoff line, and then you show another spot that's right next to the yellow on the orange cutoff line, so it's right next to it. So objectively on a spectrum, the yellow and orange are closer together than the two yellows are. And you ask people which colors are closer, they say that the two yellow ones are because of the way that our brain categorizes.
Weird.
Things. Yeah. So,
I didn't know that. I mean, I know that old question where it's like, how do I know that the blue that I see is the same blue you see, which is like a more deeper philosophical one. But like, even in the objective world of like, here are the colors, we still space them out differently. That's weird.
Yeah, you have to... The brain makes use of categorizing things and putting things in boxes, and then there's pros and cons to that. The big argument being made that, politics is a good example of this. We're not so different after all, and these are just ways we divide one another. But also, it's also useful to make snap judgments sometimes and have rules of thumb that you live by, so you don't have to sit there, staring at a certain color on a spectrum for like a really long period of time, being like, "Ooh, okay, but how orange is that?" Life is too short. Sometimes you just gotta go, it's orange, whatever.
I'll spend so much time on like a art piece, and I won't notice that my computer is in night mode so that it takes the blue light away from the screen. So I'm like tinkering it forever. I'm like, there, perfect. And then I wake up the next day and it just looks like Lisa Frank art, and it's like too purple and it's too saturated. I'm like, forget it. I got to stop spending so much time colorizing and stuff.
And it's just a setting on your computer that you changed.
Yeah, and then I realized that everyone is setting their stuff differently on their screen, different monitors display colors differently. Some people even turn off the color on their phone. Like Zach Sherwin sometimes has it just in gray mode.
Yeah, that's supposed to make, the idea is that it makes phones less distracting because they're blander.
Yeah, it's dishonest though. That's like setting your clock to the wrong time so that you're you show up early. live truthfully.
It does feel like that a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I could see both sides of it, I guess.
No, I'm just on team color. I guess that's why.
Yeah, of course. So we also, I accidentally deleted the tab that was saving the progress of where we were on this test, which again, this is politicalcompass.org, and it's just the simple test of political attitudes that are on there. And also, again, so this is a part 2 episode. So usually these are standalone, and this one is standalone, but you'll definitely benefit from at least listening to the previous episode. But I thought, just to recap, because it's been a week for you guys, instead of doing this off air, we'll just read through. There's not that many of them because we expanded each statement into a whole conversation. So we'll just lightning round these and have Ramin try to recall where it will be interesting if any listener goes back and finds out that you're different politically than you were yesterday.
Ooh, I don't know. My memory is pretty sharp. I have a good memoron.
Yeah.
I have a high memoron count in my neural cortex. The neural cortex contains sometimes thousands of memorons. Smarter people have sometimes 8,000 to 9,000 memorons. Dumber people have 4,000 memorons. But I've got like 10, 11,000 memorons up in here.
I'm hoping that might make a new thing that our listeners reference. We got soft rock, be soft rock, and then I think that I want listeners to sometimes, when they're impressed, be like, wow, Ramin does have a great memoron. And just integrate that. I listened to these two guys on this podcast. One of them has an excellent memoron.
What? Yeah.
Oh, it's a word they made up. Oh. Okay, so lightning round, just to get us caught up. Because this is a 6-page test, I believe. I need to get to the end of it to know for sure. The last thing might be nothingness, but anyway, and we're just on page 2, so this won't take long at all, listeners. Okay, we're 8 minutes in. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interest of transnational corporations.
Strongly agree. Team humanity.
Strongly agree.
Yeah, corporation, you just think of a big gray building and like some bald guy with a cigar yelling at you.
Yeah.
But it's not that. But anyway, question 2.
Bald guys with cigars yelling at. I like that we're saying new and different things about each of these already.
And I don't mean to be bald phobic either. I am a huge supporter of the bald community. I was at the march. I gave to the jail bail fund of the bald.
Yeah, I mean, riots. I do have.
Yeah.
I do have lush hair guilt. I'd always support my country whether it was right or wrong.
Strongly disagree.
Yeah, you might be more extreme today. No one chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it.
Disagree.
Yeah, our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. That word superior, so crazy.
If it wasn't worded that way, it would be strongly, but I think I said disagree last time, but not strongly disagree because the example of, more
you explained
melanin.
It really well. Yeah. So we're kind of disregarding the word superior because that's outrageous and putting you down.
Maybe I was
agree
or disagree. I don't remember. No, I think I was agree.
Oh, you were agree. I mean, yeah.
I was agree.
Yeah, we talked about appreciating aspects of who you are. For example, you don't have to wear as much sunscreen as I do, and I get more vitamin D in the northern climate of Wisconsin where there's not as plentiful vitamin D, and we can appreciate that happens. The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Disagree.
Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified.
Agree. Sometimes.
There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment.
Agree.
Agree. I forget if you were strong. I think you were just an agree on that.
Yeah, you changed my mind on it because it's not all bad. Entertainning information is good, but then entertainment disguised as information can be worrisome.
Yeah, and it's also kind of impossible. So I know from having spoken with like nearly 400 scientists on my podcast now and lots more off of it, that I'll take something that I learned in a class or like a scientist told me in a previous episode, and then I'll be talking with a different guest and I'll be like, what about this thing? And then they're like, actually, that's kind of like, that study was a lot of fun. I'm not sure it totally replicated, and so it's also just like a personality trait. Like some scientists will be like, ooh, this is a really cool, juicy thing that gets students' attention and people are into it. And then other people are a little more, I don't know if it's like careful or persnickety or something, where it's just like, hold on now, hold on. But you can even ask someone about work that they did 5 years ago, and they'll be like, actually,
it's like fashion
almost.
Not in that it's arbitrary, but like it's fashion in that like, no, that's 80s science. Like we're in 2021 now. And I might have already brought up this example, but my dad was bringing up something about like it's impossible to predict whether something is a prime number or something to do with prime numbers and prediction. And he was saying like, it's a fundamental thing that, we cannot predict. And then my brother's like, no, actually they figured that out in 2019.
That was a recent development.
Yeah, so it's crazy that if you're not completely read up on the latest science news, then you might be wearing some sweat
and it's not
pants,
like
hammer pants or something.
And unless we throw the baby out with the bathwater, it's in those cases that I gave, or in the case that Ramin gave, it was just that it wasn't that it was like the whole world got turned upside down and everything that we knew about prime numbers was wrong because now we can actually predict them. It's just some advances. There's like some slight nudges in what we know, and we see things in a different way. But math is still a pretty great tool.
Like Einstein didn't debunk Newton. He just debunked it like on the larger scale, and then quantum physics debunked relativity on a different scale, but like relativity still is useful, and Newton's laws are still useful too, but they're just not applied to everything.
Yeah, Newton's laws worked really well within the models he was using them. And then the models just got more nuanced and complex and figured out ways to cover more of the infinite information that we're trying to process. Just humans are pretty good at it in some ways. All right. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality.
Strongly agree.
Okay. We're almost to where we were. Okay. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment.
Disagree.
Because corporation cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation.
Strongly agree.
From each according to his ability to each according to his needs is a fundamentally good idea.
That one I always have to think about what it means. I guess agree, but not strongly agree. I think that's what I answered last time.
Yeah, we did a whole thing about
help the less fortunate, but also Jeff Bezos, as much as he makes his employees drink their own piss, I couldn't have made Amazon. He does deserve more money than I do. I just sit here and draw pictures of rainbow guys.
Yeah, there were a lot of great things about what he did. And also, I think I thought about this because we were talking about...
Or Rihanna. I'll use Rihanna as a better example than Jeff Bezos. That's like a more popular answer. Yeah. Rihanna deserves more money than I do. Better singer, better dancer, better looking, makes makeup. Has a better, has more attitude. Like her giving you the finger, just, I don't know, it has more weight than mine. Mine's just kind of like...
Yeah, but how's her Memetron?
Memetrons? I don't know. I'd have to ask her, but it'd probably be tough.
You think she has a good Memetron?
I'm sure. Maybe. I don't know.
Okay. I mean...
I actually don't know a whole lot about Rihanna, but I've always enjoyed whenever I've heard a song or when I've seen her in a SNL sketch or something.
I'm not familiar with any of her stuff, actually. So I do... I thought about this as this difference between the heart and the head and that sort of thing. And yes, in an ideal world, a lot of these things sound really good, but how practical are they to implement? And this was this question that we had in the conversation that we expanded on. It kind of occurred to me today that it is like, it's a little insulting, I think, sometimes when people are like, oh, well, that just sounds like a nice idea, or you're virtue signaling, or sure, that sounds nice, but it's not logical. And I think that in a lot of contexts, I would push back on that quite a bit and be like, oh no, it's illogical to think that not feeding poor people, like poor school children, and not creating a better education system, and that it's illogical. It's naive and foolish to think you can just do nothing and everything will just sort itself out and survival of the fittest. Or it's a misunderstanding of how life works, how evolution works, how humans as social animals that live in complex networks in insane metropolitan cities using internet. And we are, like it or not, I mean,
we're stuck together.
Yeah, unless you're a libertarian that's like, I'm living in the woods, I'm going off the grid, I'm not using the internet or cell phone or anything. Well, guess what?
Even then, you don't own those
part
woods.
Of the world.
The United States will own that woods. Like, there's not like some woods that is not claimed by some nation state. And if it's not, it's probably claimed by some animals that you would wish was a nation state.
Yeah. So I don't think you need to be a big softy to think that getting people's needs met has a lot of utility to it. To having a better education system can, if it's truly better, lead to a better, more informed world where people are trained better for the modern issues and modern opportunities and employment and yada yada.
And I always bring up the example of how your body is socialist and that like resources are shared across the whole thing. It's not like your liver is not going to hog resources. It's like going to make sure everything is set and then it starts to accumulate.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to ask me to describe that in further depth, I would say I cannot do it. I would need some other scientists to, and by other scientists, I mean scientists, not other scientists.
Yeah, don't ask me about anatomy. My goodness, it's anatomy and nutrition and those sorts of things.
I mean, up until yesterday, I thought one of the balls had urine and the other one had semen in it. Just kidding. I just like that image. The left testicle, if you're left-handed, contains urine, while the right contains sperm. Now, if you are right-handed, that would be reversed. There are cases in which people who are ambidextrous have both urine and sperm in both testicles. This sometimes causes a problem with fertility. It often results in certain miscarriages, but sometimes it works out. And that's just one of the miracles of the body.
I feel like that's like I used to hang out with Dan Cummins a bit more often because we both lived in LA at the time. I forget where he is now. But anyway, we used to go on like couple dates and stuff like that, and then when I got out of a relationship, I haven't seen him that much. But the reason I bring him up is because he has like he has kind of an abstract sort of sense of humor that's similar to that joke idea, and he does like tell his kids stuff like that. Just like I'd always be like, I wonder if his kids know when he's joking and when he's not, because he'll say it like totally straight face.
I wonder what's going to happen to those kids, or like Tom Segura and Christina P's kids. Like to have your parents have a show like Your Mom's House, or like a show like Time Suck, or what's his other podcast, Is We Dumb? Like you have all this record of your family just kind of with this outrageous shit.
Yeah,
What are those kids going to be like? Probably just normal kids, I guess. But
I like that idea of just teaching your kid something really strange like that. Like, I think we talked about once on the show how I would want to raise my child to. I would pretend like dreams aren't a thing. So when they experience dreams, I'd be like, "What happened?" No.
So you didn't fall asleep? You just watched a show? What show was it? No, it wasn't a show. But then where are these dragons? How are you in the show? Are you sure it wasn't just a kid that looked like you? Huh.
Oh, weird. You were in bed all night, so I don't know. It's a pretty wild. So you're just lying to your father. Okay.
I heard that after a certain age, kids that are brought up in the wilderness, I know there's not that many of them, but there are some outlier cases of a Mowgli being found who was raised by wolves. Like I heard you can't teach them language if you find them after a certain age.
Really?
Yeah. If they have not like you can't teach them English if they grew up learning Spanish or something like that. I'm saying if they never learned a language before.
That would be funny to like really, I mean, I guess it would be funny and tragic, but what if like a child's life was ruined and like you really, we get better at therapy and everything and you realize that you're traced back to like, my dad thought it would be funny to tell me that one of my balls has urine and one of my balls has semen. And now I'm hooked on heroin.
Yeah. If anyone's going to do it, it's people in our circles.
All right, we're almost caught up. The freer the market, the freer the people.
Disagree.
Okay. It's a
not that free markets are bad, also clarifying, but just like if that is the correlation. But also, no, I'll keep it as disagree, because free doesn't imply healthy. Like freer market, freer people, sure. But you're freedom to buy whatever, freedom to sell whatever, freedom to lie, freedom to die.
I have such an I hate words that sound good, like on paper, like freedom. You can just be like, well, you believe in freedom, right? So therefore, if you don't agree with what my idea of freedom means, like freedom isn't, you aren't free to jump 400 feet into the sky. Like there's lots of things that inhibit your freedom that aren't just man-made laws. Mm-hmm. There are lacks of mandates that make it so that you aren't free to safely drink the water in your town because of the freedom that corporation had. So it's like, what are you even saying? It's like saying, pro-life. Well, you like life, don't you? It's like, get fucked. That's such a gotcha, stupid, like with the any of the saying you need like proof of vaccine or whatever, which I totally understand people's arguments of like that being a creepy thing and whatever else. And I don't know where I stand on mandates, and it's unfortunate and everything else. But then people will be like, do you believe in segregation? It's like, take it easy. That's the word you're choose. Don't pretend like you choosing to use that word to describe it means that that's objectively what's happening.
Stanhope has had some funny takes with all this, in that he would say like, would you refuse to perform at a club that requires ID to prove you're 21 and up, even though you'll get sent off to a war to die if you're 18?
Yeah.
Did I word that right? Anyway,
I saw that tweet. It was something close to that.
But with all the mandates and stuff, I'm with you. I get the fear with it and everything, but also I accept that as time goes on, there's just going to be more, scanners, IDs, cameras. That's just kind of how it goes. Like,
I lived through seatbelts. I lived through smoking, not being indoors anymore.
Provision body scanners.
Through the same fucking freakouts.
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't have freaked out about the smoking indoors thing if you wanted me to listen to your tyrannical government rants now and there. This is just about power. Like the government sitting there like, how do we get more power? I know. Make them wear a mask on their face indoors. Ha ha ha. Now we have power. No. Money. You get more money. That's how you have power. Not plus, getting people to wear
speaking of
masks.
Money, Big Pharma pays us way too much to ever not.
That is like the idea too that people like, well, people, look at how many masks are being sold. I was just staying with friends who are like, you think the mask industry isn't doing? What do you think, they want to stop selling masks? Like, okay. So you're saying every epidemiologist, every virologist in the world is just getting paid off by big masks, and like masks do nothing. And they're like, ooh, this big mask money is so sweet that I'm just going to skew all of the data and make it replicate and peer review over and over again, because that's how much I care about this mask money. Nah, you're talking about someone that has a job that pays them like $70,000 a year. And the reason why they do it is because they believe they're making the world a better place, compared to someone that doesn't know a fucking thing about science. So it's just a thing. All right. I get worked up sometimes for me.
Oh no, I feel you.
It's a sad reflection on our society. This is the last one and we're caught up. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product.
I think I started that with a light agree, and then I changed it to a disagree.
Yeah, because we both just we decided that we like the word sad reflection.
Yeah.
You could just say that about anything. Life is a sad reflection. Agree.
It's a sad
There's a lot of other things as well, but it is also a sad reflection.
It's a sad reflection of our society that children would rather play video games than listen to their grandparents tell them stories about walking to the war.
This is, I mean, I wonder when they put together these studies, if they test out each phrasing of each statement first, or if someone just writes up 100 questions, someone else looks at them and is like, yeah, okay, this seems about right. I don't know how they put these together, because some of these are worded so strangely. But so we're caught up now. And in regards to the like needing more shades and the spectrum stuff, I was thinking about centrism and moderate again, and how we love to, because we have been consistently falling into the disagree and agree, not the strongly category. So we're already, like, according to this study, more in the moderate side of things. There has been many where I would have clicked a neutral if that were an option. There just wasn't. But it is funny that we very much. So I was thinking about how much I was making a joke about how we're perched high above the, petty bickering of the lesser-minded political extremists and
savages,
and we see the objective. I am moderate. I am centrist. I am hero. Yeah, like everyone has this like take about themselves. But there's what I like about this, and what I like about the idea of, like filling something like this out and having that like specific issue cataloged, is because that specific issue as a frame of reference for where you stand on a given issue is because what centrism, if you say you're just a centrist, I guess what I'm getting at is, I think it's more accurate to say depends on the issue.
Yeah,
I think that's the
true.
most accurate thing you can be. Whereas if you just say you're a centrist, then you're playing the same game of, well, the right just does this all the way down the line and the left does this all the way down. And if you're like, I used to only vote third party. I didn't care if they were like more right or more left. I just believed in, like, I want more than two parties. By doing that, I'm voting for the idea of, I'm showing that there is demand for more than two parties. I've never liked the two party system. I don't like lots of it. I don't like presidents. I think that there should be like a panel or something like that, rather than like one side gets power for a while and another side.
Yeah.
I think that I think debates are ridiculous, and it should be just conversations of groups of people sorting stuff out. And now we can record it and have digital records, and people can kind of, rather than having weird pep talks and campaigns and stuff, if listeners are wondering where I stand on things. But the idea of having a default response to just down the ticket is saying like you're moderate. So, well, reality isn't porridge and you aren't Goldilocks. It depends. There
is porridge in reality.
Yeah,
but there is not porridge. Goldilocks. Perhaps only in writing. But porridge is real. I've seen it.
There's certain issues that are very subjective. Like, for example, I would say like something like capital punishment and like where do you fall on, is it right or wrong to end someone's life in this regard? I would say that's more subjective. And then there's things that are clearly objective realities.
Because Catherine is like very anti-capital punishment, and then I like have some dark side in me, and then I'll be watching a fictional TV show about someone. I'm like, oh, they need to make the death penalty quicker. They need to make it faster.
So I wonder if that'll come up in here. So we'll just cover it now.
And I even had a whole I took a whole university class on ethics, and one of the part of the semester was death penalty. Does it act as a deterrent? It's been proven to not act as a deterrent. It costs $200,000 to keep someone on death row, on and on and on. But still, something about your chimp mind wants to kill the bad guy.
Yeah.
That this rapist murderer, we've got to kill him fast and with pain, and that we got to make sure that if there's an afterlife that he goes to the bad one.
Yeah. I'm less about vengeance and more the utility of, I think some people like had a shot and, life didn't work and we don't really need them around. And they were like, if it's a difference between someone that's going to go out and keep murdering, it's like, okay, well then they don't exist. Like I don't philosophically, I don't have a problem with capital punishment. I guess my issue is like, are you getting the right person? Do they have other things? Because I do believe that there's like sane people that can go down whatever path, and like crime bosses or something like that, or that can end up there's hitmen or whatever that are like, that was not an insane person. There's people that are there's people that have like killed and don't even have an idea that they did it, or didn't even understand that it was wrong, because some extraordinary percentage of people on death row have prefrontal cortex damage. A lot of times they're like in a car accident when they were a kid, and or something like that happened to them where they just don't have the ability to control impulses. And speaking of chip minds and stuff, so it's a little bit like, one, I don't like any of the prison system. I don't like any of the for-profit prison. I think our education system needs a massive overhaul. But prison especially is. But yeah, I mean, in terms of capital punishment, if I'm building like some perfect utopia where the person that did it is the one actually being charged and things like that, I don't have a problem with ending someone's life. Like, right, yeah, you had a shot, you fucked up and did some like horrible shit. And
so approve in some cases in theory, but definitely not the system that's currently set up.
What do you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I know that the current system does not deter, doesn't help. It's expensive. It's not humane. It's the wrong thing. It's very vengeance based. But I think I've said this quote before. I forget who the quote is, but we have to find a way of distinguishing the people we're afraid of from the people we're mad at. And like, you shouldn't put people you're mad at in a cage. if they did something and they're not a real threat to society. I mean, especially of the drug offenders, stuff like that, people that need help.
Oh, yeah.
And especially when it doesn't rehabilitate at all and it makes things worse. Forget the not rehabilitation part. But yeah, having an actual system of rehabilitation would be cool. And then that would be interesting if you could rehabilitate a serial killer and they're actually like they've changed, but you still associate them with the old person. That'll be a weird thing in society.
Yeah, it's weird because I'm for much shorter sentences just across the board for almost every crime, and other than maybe like white collar or something like that where you can just buy yourself way out of things. Though I think there's like some countries that have your speed, like if you get a speeding ticket, it is a percentage of your income.
Oh, damn.
Rather than, because it accounts for, because otherwise rich people are like, whatever, $200, I guess I just get to drive as fast as I want to.
Oh, so then it's like 20 grand.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun.
It's kind of cool. But the idea that like, I mean, I guess as a deterrent, but the idea that putting someone in prison for 20 or 30 years or something like that is doing something to help them, or to like, if you truly think they're like, it's like teaching them a lesson, like, well, what lesson are they? They're not learning any lessons that are making society more productive or them more productive. Like that's, I think 1 year of prison is like, pretty impactful for the average person.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, Chuck Palahniuk's father was murdered, and he got to decide whether he got capital punishment or not. And his answer was something to the effect of, yeah, I had studied his life and I had come to the conclusion that was the right end to his life, like the right story ending. It was the only way to reconcile, to conclude that. And it's almost like he looked at it from a literary standpoint of like, yeah, it simply must be the way this character ends. Yeah. That's gotta suck if you're like, you murder someone and it's like you murdered Chuck Palahniuk's father, not I don't know, some compassionate example person. But it's like, oh shit, of course he's gonna give me the death penalty.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think to call prison rehabilitation is fucking insane. Mm-hmm.
Unless it's in Finland or something where they make you waffles and they show you books and then you come out in 3 weeks a better person.
Yeah. Things like, I guess I'm referring to the American system, which is nuts.
In Finland, we give our prisoners 2 weeks of beach vacation and they reflect on the sunlight and they come back as productive gardeners, hospital workers, just truly wonderful. This is not a Finnish accent, but people don't know what Finnish accent
you
is.
Get a
so
vacation
you just make
for
accent.
Doing crimes.
Yeah.
And also someone that's been to jail, there's aspects of it that weren't bad. I mean, I don't know what like really prison was like, but I don't know, to sit around and play cards and watch some TV and stuff like that wasn't.
You got to do that? I didn't get to do that.
In the world. Yeah.
I didn't get shit. I just got a weird slimy bologna sandwich and an orange with some bruises on it.
Yeah, my prison experience just simply wasn't that bad. And it was enough to, it's not like I had any fondness of going back. But that's the other thing too, is like prison anxiety causes so much, as much as prison might be a deterrent, it's also the anxiety of going to prison is such an unnecessary amount of stress on some people's lives that are otherwise like, law-abiding citizens and living life in a good way and everything else. But like so many of us are scared of homelessness in prison, just unnecessarily trying to be good people, trying to work and like live a decent life, and just like terrified of like, oh, what if this happens? I'm not able to pay my bills and I go to prison and I become homeless, and it shouldn't. We should be better. We certainly have more than enough resources to be better than that, but we aren't.
Yeah.
All right. So here we are. We're all caught up. And with some bonus rants in my pants. Got real ranty today. I'm into it. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold.
Agree. Yeah, agree. It shouldn't.
And also, like, what's the alternative?
I mean, the Native American tribes, like, I mean, you hear that story of where the colonizers asked, like, hey, can we have this? And they go, sure. I mean, it's land. Of course you can have this. And then to their minds, it's like they couldn't comprehend the idea of owning land. So when they're asking, like, can we have it? They thought they meant it in their way of having it, which is use it, not own it. And
yeah.
I remember that happened when I was a kid, like I was 7 or 8 years old. I just watched it. I wasn't part of the interaction, but some kid had a toy and the other kid said like, hey, can I have this? And then the kid says, oh yeah, sure. And the kid thought that he was lending it. And then the one that took it is like, man, Joel is so cool. He gave me this. It's mine. And he's like, what do you mean? No, it's not yours. I just meant you could play with it. And he's like, no, you said I could have it. And I remember thinking that kid seriously thought that he just gave him his toy and now he's trying to legally argue that he owns it. That kid was such a weird kid, and he had like a successful like lawyer dad, and you could totally see where he got the fucking evil from.
I just don't know how people want a home or even just an apartment in their own space and everything, and they want that space to be theirs. I don't know. As crazy as it was for people to go on some land to be like, hey, could I have this land? That's my land. It would also be crazy for someone to just walk into your apartment and just be like, hey, I'm just going to grab something from your fridge here, since this is all, a communal space.
Yeah, it does get tricky when you start to imagine what it would look like at a certain population level. I mean,
that's the thing. Just what do you do with all these fucking people?
Maybe it's
if you
the
don't
word.
have land ownership.
It's the word that's weird. Bought and sold sounds wrong, but then it's like, no, this is my private safe space. You may not enter this radius. Then it's like, okay, that's fine. But no, that's why I'm not strongly agree.
Be a commodity. I feel like the real emphasis on that word.
Because water shouldn't be a commodity.
Gross. What's up?
Like water. When you think of Monsanto owning water, like that sounds bad. But then when you think of land, we're just so used to it. But yeah, how do you have your own private space then? Maybe you don't. Maybe you, it's a world of wandering, and there are shared spaces that you can travel to. And
I think I'd be a neutral on this one again, if I could, and I can't make up my mind here. I think I'll go with agree, just because it's like a coin flip in my mind.
And this does not mean that there's some large government entity that owns it and then the rest of us don't get to. This is like true Chief Howie Hua style. Yeah, I know that's Howie offensive, but is it though?
He's a great man though. There's some of these questions on here, like that one, land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought or sold. Like someone could someone could write a comment in YouTube that like makes an argument that I'm like, oh yeah, they're right. Just never thought about it before, like easily, very easily. I don't have a strong opinion on that one. And I just haven't spent much time thinking about it, and thinking and contemplation takes time and glucose and learning.
That's it. Just time and glucose. You stick them one part time, one part glucose, stir it for 5 to 10 minutes. 5 if you want it chunky,
Voila.
10 if you want it smooth, and you got it. Yeah.
It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society.
That one's an easy, strongly agree.
Oh, yeah. I'm like so beyond strongly agreeing.
Yeah, because just market manipulation and, just selling land back and forth at inflated prices is just manipulating people. But then people that figure out stuff about nature, they figure out stuff about physics, and then give that to the world, and then they make money off of that. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's shared knowledge. But then someone that just
there's
makes
people that inherit it. Like, this isn't a straw man. I know, like, some of the wealthiest people I know inherited money from someone who inherited money. It's like generations of not actually having to work for something.
Yeah, and it's slavery when you go back far enough, or like something kind of close to it, serfdom or something.
Yeah.
Not all of it, of course, but.
And I mean, and then you could argue that, like, shouldn't like my dad or myself have the right to earn enough money that I can pass on to my descendants and blah, blah, blah. But
sure,
but there's still, I mean,
but there should be some
the money
way
manipulation stuff is
manipulation is the key word.
Yeah. But it's also, it's funny. All of these things sound evil when it's like you picture someone at the top doing it, but then everyone's like, hey, get into crypto. We can all buy ass coin and manipulate this fake thing and be rich. We don't have to work anymore. We manipulated a fake thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it's okay for you to do that. It's okay for you to like peddle really shady shit at a booth at Burning Man. That is like probably not good for people. Definitely is not FDA approved and is really selling people a bill of goods of like, this will make you smarter and your erection will last longer. And then you're like, but these pharmaceutical companies, they're corrupted by money. Like, yeah, I think that's maybe part of the human condition.
I'm afraid so.
Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade.
Protectionism is necessary in trade. Yeah, agree.
What are we talking about here?
I think it's talking about patent laws. Like, if you have a trade secret, like you have the right to not give all your information about what your company is or how you make what you make, and up to a certain point, I think. And I'm not sure how patent law works. I'm sure it works differently depending on the subject, but I think it's fair to have some ownership of your idea, because if the bigger fish can just see your idea and they have more resources to develop it quicker, then the small business can never actually grow. You need some protection of your trade secret for a little bit.
That I agree with. Let me read what Google has to say about this. Protectionism refers to government policies that restrict international trade to help domestic industries.
Oh.
Protectionist policies are usually implemented with the goal to improve economic activity with a domestic economy, but can also be implemented for safety and quality concerns. That takes me away from a strongly agree to just an agree, I think. when it's phrased like that.
What did I say? Strong? I'll do agree regular.
I don't think you said something.
Oh, I'll do regular agree then.
Regular agree. Yeah, because patents and ownership and the ownership of intellectual property and everything else, that's a tricky one that I hope gets addressed better. You might have a lot more to say about that subject than I do, because you put a lot of stuff out on the internet that gets ripped off and taken and things, and internationally as well, because you have some of your work is in, I don't know, do you mind me sharing this?
Oh,
some of your work is like used in, you have representation in China or something.
Yeah, I do now, because before they would just steal it and sell it. So then when I had the opportunity to be legit in China, then I'm like, since people are already selling it there illegally, I might as well try to have representation that sells it there legally.
Yeah.
And I don't even keep up with it that much. As a matter of fact, I told my Chinese agent that I would call them like a week ago, and I forgot about it. And they're fast. Like, or I don't know if all of them are, but at least he describes it as like, yeah, stuff moves pretty fast out here. And I move slow. I like reply to an email 2 weeks later, and they're expecting like to get an email back that same hour. So it's different cultures, me versus the people that actually want to work.
All of China is email zero.
Yeah.
Then like 300 years from now, they're like, how did China take over the world? Email zero. Just as a cultural attitude.
That might be the case. Oh, but I was thinking about how visual art or images, photographs, whatever, is so easy to steal, and there's no protection against it unless you want to fill out the copyright form and submit that. But then audio, for some reason, audio gets flagged so quickly to the point where I know actual musicians who post their work and it gets flagged as copyrighted, because it's like, this is a copyrighted song. It's like, yeah, it's my copyrighted song. Like, too bad. You have to submit this form to get the thing released. So the audio stuff works too well, and then the visual art copyright stuff is non-existent. It's the Wild West out there. Maybe I should just do that. I'll start an account that steals other artists and then just make a giant account that way. Not really.
It's also weird because, so there's like you see this in comedy quite a bit, where someone just has success doing something, anything, and then everyone's just like, oh, we should do that, you know. And it's especially in terms of marketing or whatever, it's not considered, like, if you develop a new marketing technique, that's just anybody's. Anyone can go like, oh yeah, I'm going to design a poster like that and run a Facebook ad. And then like that thing stops working, or you know, like, oh, this person, I do the same thing, like putting together this podcast or whatever. I was looking at what other podcasters were doing and their look and the vibe and things like that. And like, oh, I like that, but here's also how we can differentiate. It's weird. I think you and I are like differentiate. Like, I used to watch comedy to know what jokes were already done so that I could make sure I was doing something differently. Whereas other people watch an art form or whatever to be like, okay, I'm going to like copy that and copy until I, you know, and I'm eventually good enough to do it on my own or copy it and do it better than that person that that I'm copying from.
Yeah, and hopefully you don't want to copy, but rather you're influenced by them, and that you're like, oh, they found their voice so clearly. I wish I could tap into my voice as clearly as they do. But you can't help but ape people when you start.
Yeah. And then it's also, there's just, I mean, we're social animals. We influence one another. I've many times worked with someone a feature act who has like an odd mannerism or something, I don't even necessarily like their act, or like maybe I don't dislike it or anything.
But you pick up the mannerism.
I'm not like, whoa, I gotta do that thing. That's incredible. It's just a thing that rubs off. You go to Australia, you start going too easy. You don't even think about it.
Yeah. Dave Attell made a lot of clones. Mitch Hedberg made a lot of clones. Sebastian, I hear, makes, like, even Seinfeld can't help but rip off Sebastian's timing. It's just too distinct and fun.
Yeah. And it's like Dave Attell doesn't hate Big J Okerson, and and Big J's super funny, and he took like it's like, there's people that humans are only so different from one another too, and that is like true to him and who he is, and it just happens to be that being true to him sounds a little bit like Dave Attell.
Yeah.
and he's still like a great comedian and unique in his own way. And so yeah, that's a fun question. Or statement rather. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. I mean, some of these are so fucking loaded. It's crazy.
That's strongly disagreed. That's their only responsibility.
I mean, even so, going back to this perfectionism, I don't know why I'm getting mad at a study. First of all,
so you got to get mad at something, and it's either me or the study.
Real jacked up about the wording of this silly study, because I think it's still getting down to the bottom of things. But protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade is a lot different of a statement than saying protectionism is necessary in a trade too. It's like however they decided to put the word sometimes in some of the statements,
it
and
is
not
weird.
others.
Yeah.
Is like, I don't get that, and how they're able to measure it unless everything is saying like a sometimesy sort of thing. I don't know. All right. So the only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders.
No. Strongly disagree.
Me too.
And I think that's one of those ones that's meant to be easy, much like the very first question.
Yeah. Anything to say about that? Should I just move on to the next one?
I mean, the most obvious one is like with insulin prices or AIDS medication, all that kind of stuff. If it was profit only without any consideration on what it does to everyone else, then you're looking at a no bueno type of time. Yeah, and then it goes both ways in some regards too, in terms of regulation. Like so people are like, you'll hear people say, why would I trust vaccines when they can't be found liable if there's vaccine injuries? Like, well, that's incorrect. That's not a thing. I believe it was in the 80s. So vaccines aren't crazy profitable. I know you can look and be like, well, COVID and every single person on earth, and you give but most vaccines are like tetanus shots and shit. Like they're not a you're talking about giving someone I don't think big tetanus is killing it out there, giving it to people that remember to get the shot every 10 years, it's like, costs next to nothing. But it was, so because of that, there was it in the era when lawsuits became, and some of them were frivolous, and there was like ambulance chasers of where there were a lot of pharmaceutical companies being like, fuck it, it's just not worth the risk. There's lots of other things that we can make. And so the government created a policy where the government has X amount of money that they use to pay out in the case of vaccine injury
first.
Oh, that's cool.
Before it impacts the pharmaceutical company. And if you think the government just likes giving money away to people like frivolously from like fake injury, it's just a slightly more government involved healthcare system is all. But if there's that, it only covers so much damage. So if a pharmaceutical company does fuck up enough and there's enough losses, they're still going to have to pay. They're still going out of business. It's not, they aren't free. They aren't free from any cost or obligation, and people aren't without without options in terms of what they can do if there are side effects from vaccines. So that's the whole.
So it's regulated enough so that it's still worth doing, and it's not unregulated enough so that they can just phone it in and just kill everybody. Yeah. So it's like finding that balance.
So if you get a bunk vaccine and like go into a seizure or something, you can absolutely sue and you can absolutely get money for that. So that is a big misunderstanding that's been popularized out there.
What if I pretended to like have very bad side effects from it just to get on Dark Horse podcast or something, and then I'm sitting there.
There's people that do that,
and then I'm like, I just wanted to be on the Dark Horse podcast for a second, but I gotta go, guys, later.
There's actually like sad-ish situations where people are starting GoFundMes saying that they were like, I was messed up by this, and then it's like them in a bed with things attached to them, and then they're like, hey, why do you have a iPhone cord attached to your finger? Why are you wearing like sticky things on your face while driving?
Oh, that's funny.
And because they started a GoFundMe thing.
I'm seeing GoFundMes now
should absolutely be prosecuted.
Not that anyone shouldn't be allowed to make their GoFundMe, but it's funny. I'll see GoFundMes for just nothing, to where like they don't have cancer or anything. It's just like, I am in need of your support. That's it. They don't even say anything. It's just need support right now.
Digital begging. Mm-hmm. Which is like not too far from what we do. Support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/mindunderpod.
Get our bonus series, get bonus episodes, get bonus discussions, ask Cord to the Discord server. And
we're in need of your support, but you know who is also in need of your support is our poor employees, drinking their own urine and living in a closet. I know that was before they lived in a home and drank their own urine, but we haven't got to where we hoped we'd be, and now they're sharing a closet. Our employees are
starting to
together.
Stink in there.
The rich are too highly taxed.
No, I don't think so. And that's pretty vague. It's like, who is the rich? Like, are we talking about people above 400K a year, $1 million a year? Especially since we all know they can hide earnings in offshore accounts and then like just own stocks, but then pay themselves a salary of $1 a year, so they don't have to pay any taxes. I don't think the rich are overtaxed, at least not here.
Are you a strongly disagree?
Strongly disagree. I'm not saying they're undertaxed either. I'm saying they're definitely not overtaxed.
Yeah, I'm a strongly disagree there. And the idea that like Elon Musk would work less hard or be able to do less if he had to pay just slightly more percentage, like another 0.5% in taxes or something, is like he'd be like, all right, not worth it then. Not working harder than I was going to.
No, it's the monkey banana thing.
Insane.
Remember the thing we talked about where if you give a monkey 3 bananas or 1 banana, it's pretty happy. But if you give a monkey 100 bananas, more than it can eat, if you give it all that and then you take one away, it gets pissed. It gets so pissed. And that's kind of what the psychology of, if you have lots and then, okay, you have to give back a little bit. Like, no, fuck you.
Right.
Oversimplification, of course. But that's what we do here.
I don't know. I actually think that it's warranted to oversimplify sometimes because I think that I think that, so, you know, there's a zillion different cognitive biases and some conflict with one another, which is like we often underestimate the goings on of people's minds and how much they've thought in how much thought they've put into certain things. Like, well, this person's just an idiot that doesn't know anything. That's a good like default thing that we or a common default thing that we tend to think about others. But we also sometimes we have exceptionally complex justifications for things that actually is like, no, you woke up on the wrong side of the bed today and then created a insane story about the world being like, I do this all the time, and then created like a very, very, very complicated story to justify like a very small nuanced thing. And that I think that is especially true in terms of instincts. I think we discount instincts and think that we arrived at our decisions about fairness, for example, like you were just talking about with the bananas and the way that we view the economy. I think that it's common for us to want to tell ourselves a story that, like, you know, I read some books and I figured a few things out and I took a economics class or whatever, and I know what's fair, when really I think there is just you had an instinct that was like quite primitive that you then dressed up and thought of like fancy words to explain and justify, but you're still back to
the Wizard of Oz,
exactly where you started.
Yeah, the little instinct behind the big show.
Yeah. All right, so...
Oh, by the way, everyone should check out the Kyle Dunnigan video where he does the impression of Elon Musk calling Pete Davidson. Because, you know, he's obsessed with being cool, and then Pete Davidson is just the epitome of cool, because he's just, I don't know, I guess. Sure.
I wonder if Pete Davidson still follows me on Twitter.
Pete Davidson, friends?
Well, he happened to... I didn't even know this.
Because you've done comedy longer than him, I think.
Yeah, I've done comedy longer than him. And he started in like Indianapolis.
I guess.
And had done some shows. And so he had like seen me perform and was like a fan before he got started. And so then when he became, I like went to look him up. I was like, why is this guy follow me? I was like, why is Pete Davidson follow me? And then I think he'd even like sent me a direct message or something that I never responded to. That was like a nice thing about, I don't know.
Now he's trended 100 times. He's dated Ariana Grande. He has a massive hog. The whole world knows him. It's crazy.
Does he have a massive hog?
Well, there was a trending topic that he did, or Ariana Grande said that he did, and then he made a joke about it on his special where he's like, it's not a giant hog. It's that, it's just that she's really tiny. She has tiny hands.
Okay.
So I don't know. Well, haven't seen it.
I'm going to say he has a giant hog.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to say strongly agree.
As being like super cool, but I'm going to agree that he has a giant hog. Strongly agree. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care.
Ooh, agree.
I agree with that too. I mean, first off, there's like optional treatment. You know, there's a difference between one of my on the last episode, I was talking about my friend, the eye surgeon, who we used to call Fireball Paul and did all these crazy things and is now an eye surgeon. There's a big difference between him fixing your cataracts and him fixing the wrinkles in your eyes to like make you look a little younger. And like, sorry, you want to look a little younger, you know, you're going to have to pay for that.
Yeah, and doctors are humans.
That's going to be extra.
Doctors are humans that need money too, and there's only so much time that they have, and there has to be a line somewhere, so it's like, who gets to go in line first?
Happy to get everyone cataracts, but I'm not socializing your skincare.
Yeah.
Like your optional skincare. If you have freakish skin and it's really inhibiting your ability to have a social life, okay, I'll consider it. All right. So yeah, are you an agree or a strongly agree there?
Just a regular.
Yeah, I'm a regular agree. Okay. Governments should penalize businesses that mislead the public.
Intentionally mislead the public, yes.
Agree or strongly agree?
Regular agree.
It doesn't say intentionally. I mean, I'm at least an agree. I feel like I'm maybe a strongly. I haven't done a lot of stronglies. I feel weak. I feel weak in my agree and disagreements with things. Maybe I might do a strongly agree on this one.
Here's why I'm not strongly.
Have something.
Because sometimes it's like EA says they're going to release this video game in the first quarter of 2021, but then it gets delayed. So they misled the public, even though people put in their pre-orders. They shouldn't be penalized for that because maybe they didn't know, it took longer. Like, misleading does not imply malice necessarily, but if it's for short-term gains, a short-term transactional gain that you lied, then yeah, I think you should be penalized.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I could tell people to come out to see my stand-up because it's going to be the best comedy show they've ever seen, and I genuinely believe that to be the case, and I'm just crazy and wrong about.
No, best is Puffery. Best and number one. I learned this in advertising class where you can legally call your product the best. You can legally call it number one. You can legally call it the most. All these things are under the blanket of what they call puffery, and that's not considered false marketing. Because you can't falsifiable it or something. If it's not falsifiable, you can say you're the best.
Was a fun bit of info.
Yeah,
and
so we're the best podcast. We're number one.
Yeah, man. And I think we got to throw a little more puffery into. Firstly, sure. I'm going to start using the word puffery more often. What are you drinking there, by the way?
This is just a Soylent protein shake.
It's nice packaging.
It's all right. Soylent has gone downhill since I've started not since I started supporting them, but I've been drinking it since like 2017, I think, and they've gradually made it worse. And it's like every now and then I'm like, I think I'm going to stop getting it, but I still keep getting it because I don't cancel it.
What kind of puffery is there on the packaging?
I don't think they use any. I think
puffery free Soylent.
They say we strive to make complete science-based, sustainable, nutritional stuff accessible to all. Complete, like complete protein. It's complete.
They strive for it. It's like we're trying.
Yeah,
we're not doing, I wouldn't say our best, but we put effort toward this direction. I feel like that's really underselling. That's low level puffery. That's just barely. That's barely puffery. Next question is, a genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies.
What?
Let me read that again. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. That's some clunky ass.
It makes sense, though. I would agree.
I mean, to create, yeah.
Because unchecked monopolies could really just hold everybody's head underwater.
Right. Then you don't have, you either have freedom from regulation, or you have freedom from monopolies and corporate power. And in some cases you have neither, but in the best of cases you probably only get one of those.
Yeah. So, and didn't Walmart kind of do something like that, where they were able to run out all the mom and pop stores because they could afford to sell everything dirt cheap, because they knew that all they had to do was run out the competition for 6 months, and then you can go back to charging whatever you want.
Yeah. Plus they got a lot of government subsidies. That's the huge. I'm kind of interested in better regulations and better policy making, but I'm in terms of where I go a little more libertarian, I think way less government subsidies going to like sports teams and oil companies and trying to entice businesses into the area or whatever. I get it, and I don't know enough about it to be like, that's just plain wrong. But the subsidies that keep farmers from producing certain crops and instead making more corn that we don't need and things like this.
What are you talking about? We need way more corn. There's not enough of
it. There's like subsidized farming makes the crops cheap enough to export to Mexico to put Mexican farmers out of business so that they have to sneak across a border to work under the table. Damn. For the very farmers, putting them out of business because of, and like seasonally they'll do that to make up for them, because the Mexican farmers don't get the same kind of subsidies. And then, yeah, it's a whole. So that subsidies, I think that we should take a much closer look at what is being subsidized and why. And
I'll be a libertarian there.
Yeah.
Feels fun to be a libertarian. Right. It makes you feel like you're a good debater. So you believe that. If you believe that, then you are, by definition, a fascist.
All right. This is, here we're getting juicy. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal.
Strongly disagree.
Me too.
Yeah. Even if it makes you, even if you're super healthy and you have all the money to raise the kid and everything, you should still be allowed to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many fucking people already. Kids are incredibly costly. And I mean, I think and also historically, the same people that have been against abortion have been against birth control and everything. So it's like, I mean, I'm not going on that side of things.
Yeah,
now, is abortion murder? History. I don't know. It's just like murder that I don't really care about, I guess.
Nothing. I mean, murder is like kind of a strong word for it, but it's not like as simple as like just nothing. Like perhaps it does have a heartbeat and there is something to be said about that, but also it's still living in your body. It's still, you should still have the right to do what you want with your body.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
you can evict the tenant.
Yeah.
And it still has the right to like take resources from other bodies that are not you if it manages to do that.
I mean, life, we have so many people, and life is hard enough without forced, unwanted children in the world. It's just like it in some utopia where there's limitless resources and everything else, and then you can just put a child up for adoption, and there's foster parents ready to, I'm willing to reopen the conversation in that world. That will never happen. But right now, I'm worried about mass extinction and putting more unwanted kids into the world is the least of my concern.
Also, didn't they figure it out already? Can't they just close the book on Roe v. Wade and like accept the loss and be like, okay, they figured that one out? Why does it keep like getting turned and overturned and like it's just this constant hot potato?
Also, if you're like, well, murder's bad, abortion's murder, then like stick with that. That's a strong argument. If you want to bring like whatever your religious beliefs or whatever into it, and it's like, well, you lost me. I just simply don't care about, in the same way that I don't care about what Gandalf would think about abortion.
I would actually be curious to hear anything Gandalf says, but I bet he'd already agree with us. And it's such a tired like argument. We've heard it so every angle of this story is I feel like people are tired of it and already know where they stand.
Yeah. But still,
and it's very pro-birth,
you know.
It's weird to be very pro-birth and then not care about whether the kid is taken care of.
Yeah.
But
all right. Well, this might be close to the last question for this episode. This is turning into a whole
its own
adventure.
Show. Should have our fourth podcast together. It's just the political questionnaire show.
All authority should be questioned.
Disagree.
Really? Huh.
I mean,
okay.
And it seems like it would create a lot of traffic if you do that.
Oh, that's a good point.
Like, do you want a stoplight everywhere? Like, if Larry Graham is trying to tell me, is trying to give me a bass lesson, and then everything he says, I'm like, wait a minute. No.
Yeah.
Just everything. Like, I'll give someone authority and then suspend my whatever for the moment and not question it. I'm not going to question all authority. Some of it I'm going to be like, you're the authority on that. Go.
All right. You moved me from a strongly agree to an agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I like expertise, which I still think like questioning is important, and experts become experts by questioning things and innovating. I like your traffic light example, to like sit at every traffic light and be like, well, I don't know, case by case basis. Yeah, the efficiency of
question it for sure, but like question all of it all the time.
You thought, what do you think I was going to be? A disagree?
Yeah, I thought you were going to give, because you clarified it by saying expertise, respect expertise. but not necessarily authority, because authority does not imply expertise. Sometimes you just wind up in a position of power and you could be a total moron.
Yeah, I mean, well, what I love about science is you can just ask someone to show you the math. So I can, you can just be like, well, what made you arrive at that? Why?
They have to derive it from first principles.
That? Yeah. Why? What was the study? What were the possible other conclusions that could have been made from the data? And questioning is great and moves things forward. That's
actually, yeah. Questioning isn't necessarily bad. Question doesn't mean like kill them. Like you should be allowed to ask questions. Man, I want to be a neutral so bad, but
I'm almost back to strongly agree. I don't. I just. It's weird to me when I mean, because I think. In the many arguments that I get in social media with people on this, where they yell that I'm a sheeple just blindly following this and that, I'm like, I think you're blindly like knee-jerk reaction to like contrarian to authority from like I don't know that the 17-year-old that just smoked their first dab and is like, it's all a lie, is like totally knows what questioning things really means and what's actually involved in thoroughly questioning something. But so I'm
But then
I like your efficiency answer.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, so many of these we just want to be neutral on, but yeah, if you don't question it ever, then you can't progress, because then we would still be in the Copernicus model of the sun being the center of the universe or whatever.
Yeah.
Got to question the church, question everything.
Some of it is, how are we defining what questioning is? Because for me to question how an engine works isn't being like, I bet they don't know how engines work, or I'm just inquisitive. Like, I want to know more about how this works. I want to understand this system better so I can. Engine's a bad example because I don't know a fucking thing about cars, but it's still because I feel like that's the problem with dogma, is that dogma by its very nature is an unquestionable truth. You cannot, you're in trouble for questioning that dogma. That's the, I feel like I was raised to, you don't question the word of God. You don't question this belief system. And I think you do.
Yeah.
Actually,
I was thinking about my traffic light metaphor, and now I want to change it to agree, because if you go to the traffic light and it says green, if you don't question that, there could be a drunk driver about to T-bone you. And since you question the authority, you accept that green means you're fine. And if you didn't question it by looking left and right, you could die.
Yeah.
So even that stuff you should question a little bit. Be like, okay, it says I can go, but maybe I can't.
Yeah, it's just like even yourself, your actions, your kind of your executive functioning could be considered an authority in that it's moving you about through life. And the more that you're able to become more mindful and create space between that and your actual actions, be like, wait, why do I behave that way? And why am I reacting emotionally that way? That doesn't necessarily mean that when questioning it, you don't arrive at like, oh, Okay. And that's why I think that, and I'm glad that I think that way. Sometimes questioning things doesn't mean like, aha, you were wrong.
Yeah, it doesn't mean overthrow. Don't overthrow all authority, but question all of it. Man, now I'm kind of getting stronger agree. I've gone all the way from a disagree to a regular agree, teetering on strongly agree, but I think I won't teeter. I think I'll just stay in the regular agree. Just because I don't want to question everything all day. It's just exhausting.
Okay. We're both at an agree then.
Cool.
Let's end the episode here because we still have a long ways to go. And if you want to keep going, we can.
How many more?
Or if you want to do a couple more. Well, this is page 3 of 6 still.
Let's do a couple more. Just a couple.
Yeah. Okay. Because we won't. I mean, we had to do the. Plus, we cheated people out of a few minutes by doing the recap.
Yeah,
so we'll
they
give them a
hate
little
us for
extra.
that. Yeah, let's give them a little bit more.
They're questioning our authority right now. What I like about another thing that I thought that I really like about doing these studies is in terms of the listener, I feel like they're a lot more involved in the conversation. Yes, they can't directly talk to us in real time. Maybe one day we'll start doing it. We've talked about maybe one day
super chat.
When we have more resources and stuff, doing the one a month. That's like a live recording or something, so people can. But I like that. This is like less passive listening, because I would imagine anyone listening to this is thinking about where they fall in this and thinking it through with us and coming up with. I'm hoping that we have good YouTube comments from this and people are going to point out blind spots that we're missing in thoughtful, fun ways and not yelling at us, which hasn't really happened yet.
Everything is so situational though, which is why we want to put neutral on everything.
Yeah. I was speaking of comments, I think I saw maybe on one of your posts, someone had a comment that was like,
I'm sure they did.
They were like, I got another laugh one. It was like, hopefully you guys will learn to stop giggling as much during the podcast, which I was like, that's your issue. It would be one thing if you're like, I don't like this person's laugh or the way that it sounds is like grating. There's something about it that I don't, or this person's voice. I have voices that I don't like. I have laughs that I don't want to hear. But you actually, your biggest bone to pick is that you want us to experience less joy. Well, it's not that you don't like our giggle. It's that it's like an inappropriate amount of enjoyment that we're having. And that's a grievance that you have like in life. Yeah. That's amazing.
I don't know who that is, but they can suck and fuck off. And I'm starting to realize like there's 8 billion people. Like I don't think you can run out of people to tell to fuck off. You can tell many people to fuck off and they're like, I'm disappointed that you told me to fuck off. And I'm like, it doesn't change the answer of me telling you to fuck off. You're just going to get more fuck off, like parking tickets or whatever.
Yeah. For curating an audience so that one day when we're touring live, if we can be like, oh, and if you think we're giggling too much right now, what do we say? And then the audience goes, suck my ass.
Yeah. See, I want the perfect balance. So on one end of the spectrum, you've got like toxic, too much of like offensive-y people that just want to shout the N-word all day. And then on the other end, you've got too sensitive where they're like, could you be more inclusive about every single word you use at all times? Then you don't want like too much of either or any on that spectrum. I want centrism right down the middle.
Yeah. That is a good example of a subjective thing where it's very reasonable to want the porridge to be just right. Mm-hmm. That's not an objective reality. Obviously, that's going to be subjective. So it does make sense to want to be centrist in terms of that particular topic. All right, next one. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth
will make the world blind and somewhat toothless.
Yes. So are you
That's the question?
A disagree or a strongly disagree? That's the statement. I mean, they're all
strongly disagree.
Yeah, I mean, what a crazy thing. Like, imagine we were playing pickleball together as teammates, and
I love this imagination exercise.
Swung at a thing that I wasn't supposed to swing at, and I hit you in the face, and I knock out a tooth, and you're upset about it. I didn't do it on purpose, but you're still upset that you're missing a tooth. And I was like, well, tooth for a tooth, Shane. We're going to pull out one of your teeth now. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with you? What do you mean you're going to pull out one of them? I'm very sorry. I accidentally knocked one of your teeth out. But now you're acting like a lunatic.
No, it's medieval.
That one tooth must have been the only thing keeping you sane, because it's crazy that you just want to take a tool and knock one of my teeth. Yeah. I was trying to think of the best tool to do that
with.
There's
a reason the quote exists.
Yeah, so we're both strongly disagree. I would like to see an argument for anything beyond a strongly disagreeing here, because
you killed this guy's daughter, now he gets to kill your daughter.
I mean, it's weird to have an equivalent thing, and it is like, even if say you take like $1 from a millions people bank account. Well, we assign prison terms for that, like, rightly. Whether it should be longer or shorter, we can debate that. But you have a different punishment for the crime. You don't crime the crime. That's such an odd eye for an eye. What a weird. Yeah. Was that in the Bible or something? What was that?
I think, eye for an eye is biblical. And then I don't know where the quote, an eye for an eye will make the world blind. That's like ancient Chinese proverb or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe Billie Eilish came up with it 3 years ago and I just heard it then.
I don't know who Billie Eilish is.
You don't? You must not be on the internet, because I see that person's face like 100,000 times a day. I cannot escape it. It's on toilet paper wrapping. It's on my Amazon boxes. It's on recommended YouTube.
Billie Eilish.
The #1 pop artist in the world. I think she's 19 years old.
Oh,
has green, like the green hair in the middle.
I'm seeing her.
Now it's blonde. That's crazy.
Okay.
I turned you on to
songwriter. Debut single Ocean Eyes. Okay. Do you like her music?
Haven't heard any of the music before. I just know that she's the biggest artist. Okay. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I'll get into Billie Eilish like in 2 years or something. But I can't right now. It's just too marketed towards me.
I hope this doesn't sound too hipstery, but for all of the self-loathing that I have, sometimes something like this happens where I find out that I didn't know about the most popular pop singer in the world. I'm like, Shane, you're awesome.
Yeah, I think the same. I think you're awesome and lucky. Both.
And lucky. Like, you got great taste for not knowing who that person was for 6 years since they exploded onto the scene. Great job.
She seems like she's got a good head on her shoulder, though, and says
I might like her.
Says that all will be forgotten. Oh, the sun is going to eat everything up. No matter what I do, it's going to be forgotten. You will be forgotten. And to know that at 19.
Yeah.
But
maybe it's just someone writing or
probably,
stuff.
yeah.
Or that would be just like a very cynical person writing stuff for a teen girl. That's awesome. I want that job. We should get into that line of business, just writing like real defeating messages for and having teen pop artists sing just like the most depressing shit imaginable. All right. Oh, so that's why she has green hair, because nothing matters. Okay. All right, Billie Eilish. I think I'm starting to get to know you. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. What the fuck is that? All right.
Agree.
Really? What about parks?
Wait, that's a theater?
Gonna charge admission for parks? You're right that it says specifically theaters or museums, but
not strongly agree, but like they're expected to fund it. Like maybe not. I'm all for the arts, but I'm also I have a ruthless attitude with the arts. I'm like, no one owes you shit. You have to. The state-funded theater company. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe museums do need like lots of money to keep everything restored and all that. But
I'm a disagree. I think more art funding. I think way more art funding. Yeah. I don't know.
Because who gets the grants then? Like what theater company gets to live and which ones don't?
Well, true. We can all decide that for another day. But like, I mean, does that fall under like, don't taxpayers pay for like the Washington Monument and stuff? Like I could give a fuck about the Washington Monument, but at the same time, like I'm kind of for.
Yeah, I would put Washington like Monument beneath theaters. Yeah. But repairing roads, giving homeless houses, that kind of stuff, healthcare. I find like that would prioritize over some improv troupe. I know that's hyperbole, but and yeah, the improv troupe isn't getting any money, of course.
Okay, well, I disagree, and you agree. I feel like we just might have found something that, I don't think maybe neither of us would move one way or another on. And
actually, I don't even agree strongly. Like, I don't even agree regularly, because if it turned out that law passes, I'd be like, yeah, great. Then the theater gets to stay open. But when it's like, they cut our tax money for our theater, it's like tough shit.
Boy, museums though? I mean,
was that in the question? Museums?
Yeah, theaters and museums. It's like museums, fucking dinosaur bones.
Okay, museums moves me a little bit.
Okay. All right.
But it doesn't move me
so different,
far,
you and I.
I'll stay with my agree, because I'm wearing the red shirt.
I'll stay with disagree. Neither of us are on an extreme end of that. I lean toward a strongly disagree there, but I'm going to put a disagree. And I wonder if you wouldn't have said something first. I wonder if there was a little bit of an anchoring effect there. Does the audience know what an anchoring effect is, where you anchor to the most suggested thing? So like if you throw out like random numbers and or like remind people of the last digits of their social security number or something like that, you prime just a random number, their estimation of things will be influenced by that random number. If you ask people, is the Eiffel Tower 100 feet or higher? And
yes,
they say, yeah, it's higher. And then you ask them to estimate, and then you ask other people, is it 1,000 feet or shorter? They say shorter. Everyone's right. It's between those two things. But the people that got the 1,000 feet anchor guess that it's higher than the people that got the 100 feet anchor.
For sure.
And so I wonder if I'm being anchored. I wonder if my true belief is that I strongly disagree with that statement. Because then you do say, I mean, you know, when we think theaters, then it makes me think of shitty local community theaters. And I'm like, no one really needs that. but that's, I don't know. I got to check that. Like I feel like I feel like art and creativity are absolutely essential for problem solving and innovation, which does lead to creating better roads and better systems of doing things. I think people are way too disconnected from art and creativity and museums and the like, and that there would be downstream utilitarian positive impacts if creativity was infused in our culture more broadly.
But
and
also, necessity is the mother of invention, and I mean, you wouldn't have hip hop without. I mean, I don't think it was funded by taxpayer money. I think it came from working with what you have. Like, oh, we don't have instruments, but we have these records that we can sample stuff and make rhymes over and little things like that. Maybe I truly believe that creativity cannot be silenced. It'll win without the training wheels. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, there's a pressure makes diamonds argument to make, but I wouldn't say that that's as there's a difference between propping up and subsidizing like a given artist, or being like, hey, everyone that plays music, we give you $1,000 a year for trying to learn guitar or something like that. That's certainly different than the Museum of Natural History or something. That is
the museum one really gets me.
Absolutely important, in my opinion. Okay. I think I'll keep it at a disagree, and we'll keep you at an agree. All right. Next question. School, or should we keep going?
One more.
Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one to end on. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory.
I didn't know compulsory was a word. I thought it was or I guess compulsive sounds like a...
Oh, compulsory. I'm sorry.
What did you say? Compulsory?
You're right. Yeah, did I say compulsory?
And then the real world is compulsory?
Compulsory, yeah.
Oh, actually, to be honest, I thought both of them weren't words, but compulsory sounds like...
I just saw a T where it doesn't exist.
Okay, so you shouldn't have to go to the class. Strongly agree. If you're learning the shit, then or same with work. If you're doing the stuff, you shouldn't have to go to the building. Having your physical body be in the building should not be the measure of whether you're being productive. Maybe some kids are night kids. They want to just do homework at night.
So true. Gosh, and it is one of my many issues with the school system. I'm definitely in agree, hands down and agree, no questions there. I don't know that I'm a strongly agree. So again, I guess if I'm thinking of, the difference between an ideal world and what can be implemented, I think one, kids aren't meant to get up so fucking early. Adults are sleep cycles change over time, and adults just have an easier time or just naturally wake up earlier, and kids don't. So it's just crazy.
I was so tired and depressed all the time.
Yeah.
You just wake up
and it's crazy that you do that to children. It's like sleep deprivation is what you do to torture the enemy.
Yeah.
When you want them to confess to things that they possibly didn't even do. That's how much sleep deprivation would be like, all right, I murdered the person. Can I fucking nap now?
I used to go to the bathroom to nap.
Sleep deprivation.
Because my parents would get me out of, like, they'd come to my room, but if I went to the bathroom and just lied down on the floor for a little bit, like, they would be like, oh, he's taking a shower. So I'd, like, earn a few extra minutes.
I'm also, I mean, and this makes me think the difference between prerequisites and required courses and electives, which I'm way more of a choose your own adventure kind of thing. I'm absolutely, I mean, I just think that, I mean, I fucking hated school so much, so it'd be weird to now have some stance that no, kids need to collect in school, and so,
you should answer it as though it does affect you. Like, answer it as though you're 12 or something. Because right now it's easy to be like, raise the age of drinking to 30. Sure, doesn't affect me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wish I would have had way more elective. I mean, I think the best thing that education can do is lead to self-motivated education, intrinsic motivation. I think the best that can be taught is curiosity.
And the worst it can do is suck the curiosity out of you, which you would have had they not interfered.
Yeah. Now you have a post-traumatic relationship with knowledge and learning and
so many of us do.
Training and expertise,
especially with things like math, science, and history.
Yeah, like I fucking loved math, and I would have. I in fact did. I did math that was for classes I wasn't in. Just in the same way that people that really liked history class, which was not me, would, read history books and watch history documentaries and stuff like that weren't at all required in the class. And that's what school should be doing, and not, making you feel like an absolute failure for math not being your preference or history not being your preference or whatever.
I have no idea what it's like right now. To think that if the school is still teaching the same stuff that we were taught when we were in school, that would be so sad, because at least when we were in high school, there wasn't smartphones or even cell phones. No one had a cell phone even when I was a senior in high school. Maybe seniors, some of them had one, but that was, to go to a school with tablets and smartphones today is just nuts.
Yeah.
And then you're learning about whatever shit from a textbook.
I bet it's getting better in a lot of ways as well. Who knows? I'm 41 years old.
Let's take a field trip. I'm sure we won't be escorted out of the building. We just came to observe, like Jane Goodall style.
Yeah. I have friends with like older children that I'll sometimes ask them and like questions about school, and they won't answer in the same way that I always did, which is I was always like, good, like fine, or whatever. Like they would actually have a lot of times things to say about school that they like and share their interests and that
weird
sort of thing. Like, wow,
weird.
What? Maybe that's just particular, maybe
anecdotal
those
evidence for
better.
sure, but
yeah, for sure.
But maybe.
All right. Well, this is awesome. This is part 2 of, we don't know how many, because now we're on page 3 of 6. This is, but this is so much fun.
Maybe we'll do speed chess on the next one.
Yeah, maybe the next one will be speed chess. I also just think that these statements are, so when we did this with the personality test, I felt like when we put out the bonus episode, it was like, well, if you guys want to hear more of the same, you can, which is like, that's not saying that in a bad way, but it was very, the questions got so repetitive. Whereas I don't feel like I feel like each of these statements opens up new doors. Maybe that won't be the case. So if they start getting repetitive, we'll speed things along. So I hope you guys are enjoying this, because it's too late. We've continued recording without your things.
Yeah.
We record a lot ahead of time before they come out. So if you aren't enjoying this, you got a rough month ahead of you.
No more like this, please. Sorry, that was episode 1 of 8.
Yeah, otherwise, so don't want to hit you over the head with Patreon plugs, but I have something new and different to say that is relative. So when we started this, our goal was to make this a sustainable podcast and to be able to pay all of the employees, everything else, and add fun things, and hopefully eventually advertise and add more things. The goal was to add like $100 of Patreon support every episode. At the time that we're recording this, we're at like a little over half of that goal. So we're behind, but I just did some promo recently. We got some other things going on, so we'll get more listeners. So that's not to put a guilt trip on you guys, but
especially because you're listening.
Yeah, you're listening. But in terms of our strategy and what our plans are, in terms of being able to tour next year and this and that, it was just a slight nudge. If you've enjoyed this, even if you want to contribute for a month or two for this ad-free show, that would be awesome. And you'll be a wonderful void visionary, sweet honey bear, very fancy Comante de Buffon, and perhaps a future lunatic. Other than that, thanks for listening, hopefully commenting along in the YouTube stuff. Thanks for the reviews on iTunes, which are so thoughtful and nice. So many, I don't know if you've read those recently, but they're not just like, this is a good podcast. People are actually writing thoughtful things about the podcast. Makes me feel wonderful and accomplished, and inspires us to keep doing better. So thank you guys, and until next time,
keep on salivating, honeys. Ding.